Hey everybody, I'm Nathaniel Dodson from tutvid.com, and today we're going to talk about some Premiere Pro stuff. In fact, here's a preview of what we're going to create. Pretty cool. It's that parallax sort of intro and transition effect. We're going to do both entirely here in Premiere Pro. If you enjoy this video, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel, and also consider supporting the YouTube channel by picking up a copy of my Photoshop course. There's a link down in the bio. You can also hit, there's a little like eye icon up there in the top corner of the video. This channel is supported entirely by viewers just like you, so thank you. Without further ado, let's jump in and check out this tutorial. So here we are in Premiere Pro, and we really have nothing. So the whole effect is going to begin by coming down here and choosing the New Item button and choose to create a new sequence first and foremost. Now, I'm going to go with digital SLR, a 1080p, and in fact 1080p at 30 frames per second, but I'm going to come up here and choose settings because I think I want to work with not 2997, but maybe 60 frames per second. Let's push it up to 60 frames per second, and we'll force our video clips here to kind of conform to that 60 frames per second. Down here, we're going to double click on our sequence name, and I'm just going to name this like transition or something like that, and I'm going to hit OK. So here is our transition sequence. You can see it here in the project bin. I'm going to grab this Mountains 01 clip. I obviously use whatever clips you've got, whatever clips you're working with. Drag this onto my timeline. It's going to give me a clip mismatch warning because the clip is different than the sequence. I'm going to say, look, just keep the existing settings. Don't change the sequence. And now I'm going to hit my plus button to just zoom in on my sequence here. I can see the clip is about 5 seconds long, so that's nice. And we'll get going right away here by creating what's called a color matte. So come down here to the New Item, and we're going to create a color matte. Now, I love to use these color mattes not necessarily as a color matte, but usually as some kind of mask, and that's exactly what we're going to do here. So I'm going to hit OK, and we'll just give it any old color, something that really sticks out. So I'm going to go with like a bright blue here, just so it's very visible, and I'm going to name this color-mask. All right, the color really, or the name doesn't really matter, but it's just so we can identify it. So there it is, my color mask, and I'm going to right-click on this clip, come up here to speed/duration, and I'm going to make sure it's 2 seconds long. So I'm going to type out 200. You can see that's giving me 2 seconds of duration, up from the 20 frames of duration that it currently has. So I'm going to hit OK, and you can see the duration of the clip has changed from 20 frames, excuse me, to 2 seconds. Great. Now we're also going to create what's called an adjustment layer here. So adjustment layer, create that. Yep, it's got all of our stuff good there. And I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to right-click and change the speed / really the duration here to 200, which is 2 seconds in our case. OK. And there we go. We have a color mask and an adjustment layer, both set to 2 seconds of duration. So we're creating the intro sort of bumper effect, well, that's sort of that parallax intro effect. What we're going to do is drag out the first adjustment layer right at the very beginning of our clip, and we're going to place a color matte right on top of it. So we go adjustment layer, color matte. Now we're going to drag out another adjustment layer right above that color matte, and then another color matte above that adjustment layer. So we're creating this like stacked up sandwich, if you will. Then we're going to create another adjustment layer and another color matte. So we have three sort of, let me just drag my audio stuff down here because we're not going to mess with audio at all. We have 3 adjustment layers alternating with 3 color masks or 3 color mattes that are going to become masks. Well, how do we make the masks? Well, before we do that, what we want to do is change the size of each of these color mattes so they actually mask the way we want them to. So come over here and hit the eyeballs to just shut off the top 4 tracks, the 2 color mattes on top and the 2 adjustment layers. Select the bottom color matte. We're going to begin with this first. And what I'm going to do you want to make sure it's selected. See, it's highlighted, selected here in our sequence. And then look to your Effect Controls panel, Effect Controls. And we have the scaling option. But we have this little option here, Uniform Scale. We want to shut that off because we really only want to scale the height. And for this, I'm going to set the height to 30%. So punch in 30. You can see it gives us a nice thin color matte now. But we need to change the Y positioning. So up here under positioning, we want to change not the X, but the Y. And the Y in this case is going to be 918. That's going to place it exactly at the bottom. Now, why is it 918? Well, it has to do with, mathematically how far the center anchor point is from the top of the frame. By the way, this 918 goes for our sequence size. So if I select the sequence and go sequence settings, my sequence is 1920 by 1080. So I'm dealing with a height of 1080. So if you're working at 1440p or 2.5K or even 4K, the Y positioning is going to be a little bit different. So the 30% would still be the same, but the Y positioning will all depend on the frame height of the video you're editing. So we've got that one. Let's go ahead and do the top mask as well. So we'll do the top one here so we can really, well, you know what, actually let's do the middle one. Let's just do it kind of in order here. So I'm going to unhide the adjustment layer, and that color matte once again fills with blue because this color matte has not had any height changes done here in the scaling department. Uncheck uniform scale. This one I'm going to give a 40% height because I want this to fill the middle. So if we have two 30%ers on either side, that's 60%, and then the remainder is 40%. 60 plus 40 is 100. Therefore, we need our sort of center mask to be 40%. We don't need to change the Y positioning, and we do want it to be exactly centered. That's perfect. All right, let's turn on the next two. Select that top color matte now, and we're going to uncheck uniform scale and set the scale height to 30%. And we need to change the Y here to 162. So that's going to place that right at the top. So now we have three color mats. You can see there's the top one, this is the middle one, and then here's, that's the wrong one, there's the bottom one, all right? So what we now need to do is basically clip each of these adjustment layers to the color mask above it. How do we do that? Well, we do it by coming over here to the effects panel, and we're going to look for an effect called track matte key. So if I go track, you can see there it is, under video effects, keying, track matte key. And with that adjustment layer selected, all I need to do is double-click track matte key, and I am going to change the matte. So here's the matte setting, and from the drop-down menu, I want to choose the video track on which the mask is setting, which here is video 3. See V3, and it's got our color mask. So I'm going to choose video 3, and you're going to see it looks like the mask disappears, but it's really now behaving as the mask. And maybe just to give you, well, you know, we'll see exactly how it works in a second. Let's go to the second adjustment layer, apply a, well, let's let it autosave, apply a second track matte. There we go. And under matte, I'm going to choose video 5 because video layer 5 is where that color mask is. And there we go. You can see that great. And now the top adjustment layer here, once again, double-click track matte key. And for matte, choose video 7. So you can see we've now masked each of our adjustment layers to each of those masks we've created, and we're ready to begin creating the animation. So let's animate the bottom first. So I'm going to select the bottom adjustment layer because remember the bottom adjustment layer is targeting sort of the bottom stripe of our frame. And we're going to look for an effect over here in the effects panel called transform. And that is right here, Video Effects, Distort, Transform. You see that? Video Effects, Distort, Transform. Great. So I'm going to click that, and I'm going to drag and drop it right on my adjustment layer. Here in the Effect Controls panel, I can just collapse my track matte key by hitting that little arrow right there. Just collapse that. We don't really need it. Get it out of the way. And my playhead here is on frame 1. So you want to make sure your playhead is on frame 1. And we're going to change the X position here. Now this is going to shift the clip underneath the adjustment layer. So if I change the X position from 960 to like, let's go up 100. Let's go to 1060. You're going to see it's going to shift just that bottom stripe of the video frame. That's perfect. And now let's click on this little stopwatch next to the position parameter, and that's going to toggle animation, but really it's going to drop a keyframe there. So the animation will begin at this 1060 position, and let's hold down our Shift key and tap the right arrow key 1, 2, maybe 3 times, and we're going to change the X position. We're going to bring it back. Remember, the default was 960. I don't quite want it to go to 960. Let's bring it back to like 980 to almost perfectly as it was. And then let's hold down Shift and tap, well, make sure you click out here on the animation timeline here. Hold down Shift and tap the right arrow key maybe one more time. And for here, we'll just click this Reset Parameter arrow, and that's going to take our X-axis back to 960. So if we just play through this real quick, we'll see that we kind of naturally have this beautifully eased animation that's just sliding the bottom part of our frame back into place. So pretty cool. We've got our first animation done. Now let's select the middle adjustment layer down here in our sequence. Drag the transform effect onto that. Let's once again collapse our track matte key. And I think for this one, I want to change the position. Once again, make sure, by the way, you have your frame, your playhead, excuse me, at 00000, just all the way at the first frame. And I want to set my position here. Maybe let's go 1200. Let's really push this over to the right. See how that's really knocking this mountain out of whack? That's perfect. Let's hit that little stopwatch to begin the animation. Hold down Shift, 1, 2, 3 with the right arrow key. And then let's set this back to like 1020. So again, we're going to bring it kind of close to 960. We'll hit Tab here, and we'll select our timeline here. Hold down Shift, tap with the right arrow key once, and just hit that little Reset Parameter arrow once again. So now if I play through this, you can see we've got 2 bits of our video animating just as we want them to. That's perfect. Let's bring our playhead back to the very first frame. Let's select now the topmost adjustment layer here, and we'll collapse our track matte key, drag that transform effect out onto that adjustment layer. And I think here for position, I'll go like, I don't know, maybe like 1100, something like that. So kind of something in between a little bit. Let's once more hit the little stopwatch to drop the keyframe, begin the animation. Shift, tap the right arrow key 1, 2, 3 times. And let's set the X here for this position to like, let's go like 1000. There we go, and then select our timeline out here, shift and the right arrow key once, and then just reset parameters. So if we play through this, we can see that we have this perfectly aligning, borderline parallax style effect that's happening now. So that's pretty cool. But the problem is, obviously, when the viewer loads up the video and begins watching, we have these huge black gullies over here on this side. So we're going to look at correcting that. In fact, to do so, let's go back to our project bin. Let's drag another adjustment layer out. I know we're dealing with a ton of adjustment layers here. We're dragging that adjustment layer above everything because we want this adjustment layer to affect everything beneath it. And what we're going to do, and this is going to add even more visual interest, we're going to go Effects, and we're going to look for an effect called Lens Distortion. And there's a lot of lens distortion removal stuff, so we're going to move all the way down here to the bottom to Video Effects Distort. And there it is, lens distortion. Let's drag and drop that on our adjustment layer here. And I'm going to set the curvature. We really want to get it, we basically want to do just enough to cover up the blackness. So I'm going to start hitting the down arrow key because I want to negative this lens curvature because it's going to give me more of like this wide splayed effect. And you can see here I'm at -26, still all the black hasn't disappeared, -28, -29. All right, so -29 is just perfect. Now, if we play through this effect, we'll see that we have this kind of effect moving into place, and it makes it look like the whole world is swirling with us, which is a pretty cool effect. I'm going to jump over to the effects panel and just clear out my search bar there. And really, at this point, you could go in to any of your adjustment layers. You could select these keyframes, and you could ease them in or out, or do an auto Bezier, or play around with the Bezier curve yourself. If you want to really tweak and adjust this, you could also move these keyframes around to adjust the duration of this intro parallax effect. But that's really the intro part of this. Now, what happens if we want to do a similar effect, but make it happen when the video is, sort of transitioning to a new video? Well, let's go ahead and take a look at how to do that. We'll move a little bit closer here to the end of our adjustment layers because we'll use these same adjustment layers to create that effect so we can have sort of this, three-part moving transition. What I'll do is, let's say right here is the point at which we want this mountains frame to change to something else. So I'll select the mountains clip. We can just do this easy here. Grab the razor tool and just snip that. There's all kinds of hotkeys you can use to do this too, but we're just going to go with something that everybody can follow along with. Select the second mountains clip here and just hit your delete or backspace key to get rid of it. And then I'm going to drag out this clip here. So it's just this guy, so almost like a drone shot, and you can see it's just very quickly backing out away from him as the drone goes to the sky. Don't worry about any bumpiness. That's just that lens correction being here where we have the adjustment layer, and then out here we no longer have that lens correction adjustment layer. So don't worry about that. We'll fix that in a moment. But what I want to do is I want to align my playhead now exactly with the split where these two clips come together. So I'm going to hit the up arrow key. That's going to bring my playhead back to the last split in sort of the targeted tracks. And right now V1 is our only sort of targeted track, if you will. What we're going to do is we're going to take advantage of the transform effect that we have on these adjustment layers. So I'm going to select the first adjustment layer here. Whoop, I double clicked it. If you do that, just make sure you select the effect controls. And down here under transform, you can see there are initial keyframes. We want to create some more keyframes out here though. In fact, I want to change the positioning, but in this case I want to change the Y positioning because I want this to look like the whole video frame like streaks upward and seamlessly transitions back down to this second mountain scene. So because we're working with the bit of video on the very bottom, we have the most sort of, we get the most pixels to play with. So I'm going to change the position on the Y here to 1200. You're going to see it's going to change the way the video looks here in just a second. You can see, look, we got this craziness going on. Don't worry about that. We also want to make sure we shut off use composition shutter angle and change the shutter angle to 360. So now that we've done that, what we can do is hold down shift and hit our left arrow key, right? So we kind of bump back a little bit, and maybe I'll tap like 1, 2, 3 times with my arrow key without hitting shift. And I'm going to hit this little reset parameter button right here. Okay, that's going to kind of set things back to normal. And then I'm going to go, well, I'll hit this jump to next keyframe arrow, right? And then I'll hold down shift. I'll tap my right arrow key once, and then let go of shift, tap my right arrow key 1, 2, 3 times, and I will once more hit this reset parameter button. So what we're going to have here, if we play through it, is the bottom part of the frame is going to do this kind of like, speedy swiping blurring effect, which is really pretty cool. And it's going to happen, the apex of which takes place right here at the seam where the two clips come together. So that's really, really great. All right, now we're going to do basically the same thing to the middle adjustment layer here, but we don't have as many pixels to play with. So what we want to do is change the Y, not to 1200, but maybe let's go with something like 800. So I'll select that and go 800. You can see it automatically drops the keyframe. And we'll do the same thing here. We'll nudge back 1 by shift the left arrow key and then 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to hit the reset parameter button and then jump to the next keyframe, shift and right arrow key, and then right arrow key 1, 2, 3. And once again, reset the parameter. Make sure I shut off use composition shutter angle and set my own shutter angle of 360 degrees. So now if I play through it, we'll see we have 2 of our little segments here that change. So that's pretty cool. So boom, it just changes perfectly just like that. Great. All right, let's select our top, not really the top adjustment layer, but the top masked adjustment layer, if you will. And what I'm going to do, now I'm at this point where the playhead is behind the split in the clip, right? And I need the playhead to be exactly at that split because that's where all the animation is taking place. So you can do that by hitting the down arrow key. So up arrow key moves you to the front of a clip on that targeted track. Down arrow key will move you to the end of a clip on that targeted track. So there we go. We've got our adjustment layer. And here I'm going to change the vertical positioning. Really, it doesn't have to move that much. It can't really move that much. So maybe let's go with like 280. See if that looks good up there. We'll make sure that we're not seeing any blackness or anything crazy. The change will be happening up here in the top section. And we'll go ahead, shift left arrow key 1, 2, 3. Reset that parameter, go to the next keyframe, shift right arrow key 1, 2, 3, great, and once more reset that parameter, uncheck use composition shutter, and set your custom shutter angle to 360 degrees, great. So at this point, if we just play through this, we'll get just a very quick, just sort of like open-close sandwich type of effect that consists of our transition. But I think I want to add something else to it. I want to make that lens correction work for us here a little bit more. So what I'll do here is I'll select the topmost adjustment layer because I really just want access to these keyframes. And I'm going to make sure I line up my playhead with the first of these 3 new keyframes by hitting the next keyframe button. Whoops, I hit it twice. Let's go back, previous keyframe. There we go. We're aligned exactly with that. Now, as this animation begins, I'm going to select my top adjustment layer here with my lens correction. I want my lens distortion, really not lens correction, but lens distortion. I want it to be back to 0 here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the reset parameter button, but this is going to give me a little bit of a problem because, well, as you can see, we're back to 0, but we don't have a keyframe. And this I'm going to undo, Command or Control Z. We need to do a couple things here. We need to, first of all, turn on the animation by hitting the toggle animation option, but I need to make sure that the curvature stays in place for the beginning of this clip. So in order to make sure that happens, I'm going to move my playhead all the way back to the beginning of this adjustment layer, and I'm going to click on that toggle animation, right? And then I'm going to select my adjustment layer here so I can get access to these 3 keyframes again, and I'm going to go next keyframe, next keyframe, next keyframe. There's where I want my lens correction to begin. So I'm going to select this top adjustment layer, and now here I'm going to place a reset parameter. So over the course of this first, whatever it is, second and a half, our lens distortion curvature is actually going to slowly animate from -29 completely back to normal. So it's going to add an additional effect to our video. So you could actually cut this off earlier if you want, but I kind of like the way it looks for us here. I'm going to hit this little go to next keyframe option, and now I'm going to go shift one click of the right arrow key 1, 2, 3, and this should be right in our middle frame. And here what I want to do is set the curvature pretty extreme, like -30. Maybe we'll go even more than that. Let's just look to see what it looks like. And then I'm going to go shift right arrow key 1, 2, 3 with the right arrow key and reset that parameter. What'll happen here is we'll get this kind of extreme, like, whoom, just bump of the camera as this animation takes place. So here I'll bring it back. We'll just try playing through it, and we'll see we just get a very fast, very just open and close type transition that takes place. It's got its blur built in, courtesy of that shutter angle we chose there in the transform effect. And you can see that's the effect. It kind of is what it is. And once more, I guess here, just check out the finished product with a couple different video clips that I used as well. And you can see it's a nice little clean effect that works really well. So yeah, while it's not necessarily an effect that you would traditionally create in Premiere Pro, this type of effect probably is better suited being created in After Effects in terms of rendering time and just overall smoothness and control and things you'll have over it. But if you're more comfortable working in Premiere Pro, It's more than possible that you can create this effect here in Premiere, and this is how I do it. And it's nice to use the adjustment layers. It's a little difficult to save an effect like this, but you could save the presets on each of the adjustment layers and just remember the stack you need to create every time you go and create this effect. But the nice thing about it is once you create it once in a video project, you can select all those adjustment layers and just hold down your Alt-Option key, drag them over and place them over, you know, another area of your video project where you want to have that transition take place, or maybe you're introducing a new clip and you want to use that kind of swaying parallax effect. Either way, you can do it here in Premiere Pro, and I really hope you've enjoyed it for creating this parallax style intro bumper transition effect using adjustment layers and color mats and just some simple effects really, and keyframing too. That's it. Get it? Got it? Good. Nathaniel Dodson, tutvid.com. I'll catch you in the next one. And before you go, make sure you subscribe to my channel for more great tutorials every day. Also, buy my course. It helps us do what we do, and this channel is supported by viewers just like you. You can also just click the thumbnail and watch another video from this channel. See you next time, guys.